So, as we're starting to get everybody on stage for the panel, we've got one eye on the comments to be looking to see if anybody's got any questions. Naturally, I've got a bunch of questions, so guys, please feel free to put your own questions in there so that we can make sure that we're delivering the right topics for the actual audience, right? I think first and foremost, which is something that we don't often do when we host these panels, is to see if any of the speakers actually have questions off the back of the topics that were shared for each other first and foremost. Does anybody have any questions that you might want to ask each other?
I have a question for Ryan, because Ryan's topic is something I've been really interested in for quite a while. Ryan, I'm sure that throughout your experience in your role, you've also probably seen people grow similar to how you have from individual contributors to management. How often, or have you ever seen somebody make that leap and decide that it's actually not for them?
That's a great question. I think, I've had the ability at Zoominfo to promote a lot of people, and sometimes we promote them and realize that this role might not be the right role for them. The nice thing about Zoominfo is that we do reallocate our team where they're going to be successful. So I think, that is something where you would want to discuss it with your leadership. At the end of the day, we know you're a high performer. We know you can do the job that you're in, and that you're a valuable team member, a resource to the business. So oftentimes, I think having that conversation with your leadership team and building out a plan of where you might need to go or to be the most successful is what you need to do. But I've had plenty of conversations where, they stepped into leadership, they thought it was right for them, they realized they like that freedom, they like the money, they like the control, and the IC role is better fit because there is a lot of different challenges and pressure points as a leader that you might experience that you might not be aware of as well. So I find that most companies will help you kind of navigate where you need to go as long as you have that honest conversation with them.
Yeah, I 100% agree to that.
Can I add something to that? I love what you just said, Ryan. And what I find also in those situations, what is really important is that you're honest to yourself and that you allow yourself to admit that it's not for you. Because so often people who move into leadership and then feel like it's not for them, they feel that shame around it and they feel like a failure because they didn't make it work for them. But it's actually not failing. It's just you were brave enough to try something, and it's even more brave to admit that this is not for you.
Agreed. I think we talk to people as well to kind of add a little bit more on top of that, is that it's okay to fail. It's okay to make left turns. You're human, right? Sometimes it's how we learn. I'm a dad of two young little girls, and I watch them make mistakes on a daily basis. I don't scold them for it. I don't think of them any different. I love them all the same, right? I kind of treat my team with the same part. Although we have some tough questions and tough conversations, it's okay to get things wrong because often that's how we learn the fastest, right? I'm sure everybody here has got some actionable hard learns that they've made in the last 3 to 5 years, let alone the first 3 to 6 months of joining this industry, right? It's one of those things that comes on. Harry, I really liked how you talked about goals. I think that, I'd probably make some transitions to like the sporting background and probably recruitment and things like that. You talked about goals and achievement and tying those into a couple of things that are important to yourself. Do you share those openly with a team, or do you save them for one-to-ones? Do you discuss goals publicly to be held accountable, or is that something that you keep to yourself and management, mate?
But what do you mean, like short term, or like what I actually like? The reason I come to, I openly talk about the reasons why I come to work. I come to work because I don't want to work. So what I mean by that is I want to get out of this as quickly as I possibly can, and the plan that I've got in my head to be able to do that, I will openly talk about with my team and things, and my manager and things like that. Yeah, so I think it's good. I think it's good when you start talking about what you want to focus on, people can just ask you how you're getting on with it, right? Yeah, definitely. I've put in, me and my manager have like a one-to-one doc, and then it goes like, how do you want me to support you this week? And I'm like, I just need you to ask me on Friday if I've been to the gym 4 times this week. So those type of things, I know that's going to build into keeping me healthy and keeping me in good state and things like that. So yeah, I don't know if we openly talk about like what we want to achieve like in the real long term, but I'd be very open to discussing that. But yeah, I definitely share with my manager and my okay, cool, this is what I want to achieve this week. And it doesn't matter what it is, he'll follow up with me based on whether it's a work-related goal or if it's a personal outside.
I've got a lot of time for that. Again, you're getting the support from your manager. One of the things that we maybe do slightly different is holding each other accountable in the room. So if we know that somebody wants to achieve something, and they can tie that in not just to individuals, but emotional gain, emotional benefit, and a number of different things, so that we're also making sure that somebody says, I'm going to hit the gym 5 times this week, we'll check in, we'll ask questions, we'll make sure that they're doing that. Or it could be something whether or not it's around targets, right? So yeah, it was always inquisitive, because different organizations, different individuals run their ship different, right? So I did want to ask that question. Timea, you mentioned about one of your top tips is to not have a script, but to have frameworks. Do you have tips for anybody in the audience that might feel like they're a little bit more script heavy, and how to build a successful framework, or like your top tips in and around frameworks that are getting you through your sales process? I don't know if we've got some lag.
I'm really sorry. Was that a question for me? Because I've just been freezing up for like the past 10 minutes and hearing robots. So
no worries. So yeah, I did. I had a question in around your comment for less
frameworks. I was like, I feel like this is for me, and I only heard one word of the whole question.
Yeah, sure. I think we've got bad connectivity, so I might switch over to somebody else and then see if we've got you back. But give me a little wave if you're ready for the next question and you've got us back good. It looks like you do. So I wanted to get your tips for the audience in and around creating frameworks that are helping you and perhaps your team right now, instead of utilizing the scripts that a lot of people maybe in the audience are using. And that will go open to everybody else as well if you've got tips on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that I basically have a framework for every step of the sales cycle. This may or may not apply to other people's sales cycles, because it depends on how complex it is, of course. But generally, I'd have like one for a demo, for a discovery, speaking to like decision maker, speaking to economic buyers, like different types of people in the sale. And honestly, the way that I built them is just through like practicing with my own team, or like my management, or like my CEO. I would do like a bunch of dry runs of different variations of scripts, and just ask them to like put themselves in the shoes of the buyer, and kind of help me throughout. And I do that kind of on a regular basis, so I try to keep updating them as well, because obviously times keep changing, the way that we sell keeps changing, the way buyers want to buy keeps changing. So it's important to like keep up with those trends as well. But I would say that's really it. Just make sure you practice and keep updating it. Like, never have it super static.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Does anybody else have anything that they'd add as a layer on top of that for frameworks, or do we have anybody that's pro script on the panel?
Time and a place, probably, depending where you are on your career. But I think not scripts if they say this, you do this, or things like that. But yeah, probably when you are starting off, you can build your confidence from that. I know I found it useful, and then when you get a little bit more experience, you start to be the person that people aspire to be, right? Because they're going ad hoc, they're asking questions when you're like, that's not on my script or anything like that. But I mean, it's definitely a time and a place for them. But I think, yeah, when you transition into more complex sales cycles and things like this, it's kind of, yeah, perhaps not as useful.
I probably echo what Harry said. Like, a lot of the things that I do with my new team is I give them a framework that I want to see them use and leverage for a couple of months that I know is successful. It makes it more predictable. It helps me understand what types of objections they might get, where the deal might go. And then as they start seeing success, begin to modify that, tweak it, make it your own, make it special to your personality and what you do. But I think having a general framework that you can work off of until you can do it, almost with your eyes closed, is something that I would recommend to most people as they still, build their fundamental skills.
Anybody else for any more? Because we see a lot of people utilizing, a lot of script frameworks. So the intros, it gets bounded around Connect and Sales 27 seconds that Jerry talks about quite a lot. We get that quite often. I get pitched even as a recruiter with it too. So I guess, it's kind of like the comfort blanket. So it's always a question of a time and a place. I do love that. We kind of build similar cool structures, frameworks, areas of which they need to break down ourselves. So curious to see, you guys' thoughts in and around that. There's a lot of people that are pro, there's some people that are anti, and then there's everything in between, right? So we obviously covered quite a lot in regards to the talks and topics. I feel like there was a general theme in and around holding yourself accountable, doing more outside of work than just being somebody that works. There's an element of failure. There's an element of knowing your why. There's lots in regards to leadership. I liked how we kind of finished in and around the leadership piece. I'd like to ask Ryan as well, at what point did you know that you wanted to become a leader? Because you talked about freedom, money, control, to be a rock star IC. Were those things that became less important to you and you had that trigger moment? Were those slides built on your journey, or is that something else?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say for myself, it's something I've always wanted. But with that being said, I was fortunate enough to be one of the first few reps at Zoominfo, and even in my office, there was 4 white desks pushed against the wall. It was in a co-shared work environment. It didn't seem super official. So as that team became more successful and grew out, there was just a need for it. And for me, I found that moving up in the ladder and moving up quickly, I found that going where the business needs me and being open to exploring new things and pushing my boundaries and doing things I haven't tried before has got me to places I wanted to go a lot faster. Working the international market was not something on my radar to wake up at 4 a.m. every day, but it's built really good experience for me. I've had the opportunity of learning new cultures and new environments and things I just haven't experienced before. So for me, it just kind of came out of a need, but it was something that I understood that I also wanted to help others and make people successful and really just coach, my skills and where I think I could add value to other people on my team.
I love that. I got a lot of time for that. I didn't realize I wanted to be a manager before I was a manager, and kind of just fell into it, right? I actually heard Henry talk at SaaStr, and you talked about international there. It was shocking to know that before you guys landed in EMEA, you had already hit 200 million ARR from the US in EMEA. And that was just a ridiculous stat. It's resonated with me. I'd say the second part from the conversations that resonated with me personally, fortunately, we don't have many comments coming in through or questions through the comments, or maybe it's my connectivity for that, was Jacob talking about who can say no. We're always focused on the yes. Even in recruitment, we're always expecting people to say yes, let alone SaaS. And the isolated conversations I related back to something that we talk about, which is champion time. Jacob, was that something that was kind of brand to you in your organization now, or is that something that you've picked up along your journey to not be fearful and to focus on who's going to say no?
Yeah, so I wish it was brought to me. It was actually from a really poor experience that had quite a significant impact, like a domino effect. So I'm constantly worried about the people who can say no, not yes now, not just in POCs, but throughout a whole deal cycle. I think one of the things that's really easy to do is have happy ears, and if your champion and your decision maker have said something, but this person kind of said some negative point or raised a question mark, it's kind of easy to like bat that away and just like brush it under the carpet and hope it doesn't get brought up again. So yeah, experience with that, and then I guess the isolated conversation parts. Like when I joined Metomic, the first customer we sold to was based on designs that looked like a working product. So I'm constantly battling with a buggy product way more than perhaps other people in larger sales companies. So being able to have like isolated conversations when the product hasn't worked very well with someone who's perhaps an assessor or quite junior hasn't derailed the proof of concept and has become somewhat a necessity, especially for early stage companies. So I've kind of seen other benefits come, but yeah, both of those have been from probably learning it the hard way rather than having someone come in and introduce them as concepts.
Perfect. I think that's like super fair. I think we just had one that's come in as well, so this can go out to the entire panel. But before I do so, yeah, Jacob, again, not to make this all I focused, because I know that we talked about, Anna talked about listening and not making it all about themselves from that. But with all of this, I want to try and share and add the different experiences that we have in recruitment is that we're not looking for reasons to submit people into our vacancies and what we're working on. We're actually looking for reasons not to submit candidates. So, you know, we're looking for reasons not to work with clients. We're looking for lots of different areas within that. We've just had a question come in from Joseph that said, what are the skills an SDR needs to develop to transition into an account executive? It's quite a common one that we see. So again, would love to get all of your insight to see what skills you guys believe is important for that development process.
I'm happy to kick off. I think normally when for me, when I first moved into AE, I was fully self-generated, so I didn't have any SDRs feeding me business. So it was a double whammy, and you kind of have to make the most of the meetings you did have. And one thing that really helped me was getting good at discovery and being able to go really deep on discovery. And as an SDR, depending on how your business is set up, you might be quite high level with your questioning and be able to extract enough information to pass it on to the account executive, who then will do the funneling. But being able to get that deeper level of discovery, doing funneling, and this is something you can practice in your own life, just how deep on a conversation can you go with someone just by asking follow-up questions, or can you explain that a little bit more, or what do you mean by that? That's going to make you really good at getting that deep discovery, understanding if it is an op, and if not, qualifying it out and focusing your time on another prospect who is probably going to buy your software.
Awesome. Love that. Has anybody else got anything they'd add to that?
Just perhaps not necessarily on the skills part of it, but I think skills are just half the game of trying to get promoted from an SDR to an AE. And I think everyone's faced there. That's the reality of it. Like your number's your number. You need to be able to do that. You've got to do discovery, but then you also need to find out what's the decision-making process internally. Who, as Jacob said, who can say no to you? What do you need to do in order to get the yes there? And actually I think, and I've never been a sales leader, but from my own experience, is that they want to see if I can run a deal cycle internally to get myself promoted almost. So identify who the key stakeholders are, put myself in the right position. So Joseph, the skills is only part of it. I think the next part is speaking to find the SDRs who have transitioned already to AEs and understand not necessarily what they did in order to get promoted, but how they did it and what was their plan going on in order to do it. Would be something that I would say to go and have a chat internally about.
Great
guys,
answer,
I'm just going to have to interject because we're just running over time a little bit, but I want to thank each of all the speakers. So if we can have a round of applause in the comments for the speakers' contributions today. Really valuable insights. All of this is recorded, will be uploaded to YouTube within 48 hours, and then I'm sure the speakers will share it amongst their networks. Thanks very much for being here. Thank you, Charles, for co-hosting.